The midnight selection ceremony had ended. Emperor Ismail Egerton, ruler of the Samarkand Empire, had picked Eliza Rothwell as his bride. This ancient custom, dating back 5 centuries, required the emperor to select his wife while blindfolded, guided only by the voices of 12 potential brides hidden behind silk screens. Tradition held that this allowed fate to guide the emperor's hand, ensuring a marriage blessed by the heavens. As dawn broke over the imperial palace of Kalb-ul-Mamlaka, the heart of the empire, Eliza sat alone in the bridal chamber, her trembling fingers tracing the intricate gold embroidery of her ceremonial attire. The heavy silk of her kaftan, the traditional Samarkandi wedding garment, weighed upon her shoulders like the burden of her new position. "Your Imperial Majesty," a voice called from beyond the ornate cedar doors. "May I enter?" Eliza straightened her posture, adjusting the pearl-laden headdress that threatened to topple with each movement. "You may," she replied, her voice barely audible even to herself. The chief lady of the imperial bedchamber, Dowager Countess Victoria Hartland, entered with a practiced bow. At 63, she had served 3 emperors with unfailing loyalty. Her sharp eyes assessed Eliza with unconcealed skepticism. "The morning ceremony will commence in 1 hour, Your Majesty. I have brought attendants to prepare you." Eliza nodded, her eyes downcast. "Thank you, Lady Hartland." The older woman paused, her hand resting on the doorframe. "You understand the gravity of today's proceedings, I trust?" "The emperor's selection must be validated by the court of 7 viziers." "I understand," Eliza replied, though in truth, she understood little beyond her own terror. As the attendants bustled around her, Eliza recalled the events that had led to this moment. 6 months earlier, she had been merely the daughter of a minor provincial governor, Sir James Rothwell, living a quiet life on the empire's northern frontier. When the imperial decree had arrived, announcing that all eligible noblewomen between 18 and 22 years of age were to present themselves as potential imperial brides, her father had wept with joy at the possibility of elevating their family's standing. Eliza had wept for different reasons. Emperor Ismail paced the length of his private study, the dawn light filtering through the latticed windows casting geometric shadows across the Tabriz carpet. At 32, he had delayed the traditional marriage ceremony far longer than any emperor before him, much to the distress of his advisors and the imperial court. "Your Imperial Majesty," Grand Vizier Hassan Patel announced himself with a deep bow. "The court awaits your pleasure for the morning ceremony." Ismail turned, his imperial regalia glinting in the early light. "Tell me again of the girl I chose, Hassan." The Grand Vizier's expression remained carefully neutral. "Lady Eliza Rothwell, daughter of Governor Rothwell of the northern province of Khuzestan. 20 years of age, educated in the Imperial Women's College in Bukhara, proficient in 4 languages including ancient Samarkandi. Her family's lineage is respectable, if not particularly distinguished." Ismail nodded slowly. "And what of the other matter we discussed?" Hassan's eyes flicked toward the door to ensure their privacy. "The arrangements have been made, Your Majesty, though I must again express my profound concern about this course of action. The traditions of the midnight selection are sacred." "To interfere with, I am well aware of the traditions, Hassan," Ismail interrupted, his voice carrying the weight of imperial command. "I am also aware that I rule an empire surrounded by enemies who would exploit any perceived weakness. The bride I truly chose would provide such an opportunity." "As you say, Your Majesty." Hassan bowed again. "But may I remind you that deception carries its own risks?" Ismail turned to gaze out the window at the sprawling imperial city below. "The morning ceremony will proceed as planned. Lady Eliza will be presented as my chosen bride." "And what of Lady, we will not speak her name," Ismail cut him off sharply. "For her safety as much as the empire's stability." The Grand Vizier bowed once more and departed, leaving the emperor alone with thoughts as turbulent as the mountain rivers that marked his empire's eastern borders. The great hall of celestial harmony hummed with the whispers of 500 court nobles as Eliza was led to the dais at its center. The morning ceremony, designed to present the emperor's chosen bride to the court and receive the blessing of the 7 viziers, was the most public moment of the complex marriage ritual. Eliza felt the weight of countless evaluating stares. Her ceremonial dress, laden with jewels representing each province of the empire, seemed to grow heavier with each step. At the center of the hall stood Emperor Ismail, resplendent in gold-threaded robes, his face as impassive as the ancient marble statues that lined the imperial corridors. As she approached and performed the ritual prostration, Eliza caught something unexpected in the emperor's eyes, not love or desire, but something that looked distressingly like regret. The chief vizier stepped forward, his voice resonating through the cavernous hall. "Today, we witness the divine union of His Imperial Majesty, Light of Samarkand, Shield of the Faith, Emperor Ismail Egerton, with his chosen bride, Lady Eliza Rothwell. May their union bring prosperity to the empire and strength to the imperial line." The traditional response would have been for the emperor to help his bride rise and place the empress's diadem upon her head. Instead, Ismail stood motionless, his eyes scanning the crowd as if searching for someone. A murmur rippled through the assembled nobility. The chief vizier cleared his throat nervously. "Your Imperial Majesty." Ismail seemed to return from some distant thought. He extended his hand to Eliza, helping her to her feet. As their eyes met, he whispered words meant only for her, "I apologize for what is to come." Before Eliza could process his meaning, the great bronze doors at the far end of the hall crashed open. Imperial guards rushed in, surrounding a woman who walked with proud defiance despite the restraints on her wrists. "What is the meaning of this interruption?" the chief vizier demanded. The captain of the guard bowed deeply. "Your Excellency, we discovered this woman attempting to flee the palace. She claims to be the emperor's true chosen bride." Gasps echoed throughout the hall. Eliza felt her knees weaken as the woman was brought forward, Evangeline Rennick, daughter of the Duke of Western Kazakhstan, known throughout the empire for her beauty and her family's ancient lineage. "This is a grave accusation," the chief vizier said, turning to Ismail. "Your Imperial Majesty, do you recognize this woman?" Ismail's face betrayed nothing. "I chose my bride at midnight, as tradition dictates. Lady Eliza stands before you as my selection." Evangeline raised her head, her voice clear and unwavering. "I was the fourth voice behind the silk screen, Your Majesty. You grasped my hand and placed the imperial ring upon my finger before midnight struck. I can describe every detail of that moment." Eliza felt the court's attention shift between her and Evangeline like a pendulum. The whispering grew louder, threatening to erupt into open scandal. "Silence!" Ismail commanded, his voice cutting through the noise. "This matter requires investigation. The mourning ceremony is suspended until the truth is determined." As imperial guards escorted both women from the hall, Eliza caught a glimpse of Grand Vizier Hassan's face. Unlike the shocked expressions of the court nobility, his features showed only resigned acceptance, as if he had expected this disruption all along. Eliza paced the confines of her chamber, now feeling more like a prison than the luxurious apartment it was. For hours had passed since the disastrous ceremony, and no word had come from the emperor or his officials. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called, expecting another silent attendant with refreshment she couldn't stomach. Instead, an elderly woman in the simple grey robes of a palace scribe stepped inside, bowing with difficulty due to her hunched back. "Lady Rothwell," the woman said, her voice surprisingly strong for her frail appearance. "I am Scribe Matilda Holloway. I have served the imperial family for 53 years. Eliza curtsied reflexively. "How may I assist you, Scribe Holloway?" The old woman closed the door carefully behind her and approached, her rheumy eyes scanning the room for listeners. "It is I who have come to assist you, my lady. There are things you must know, things that even the emperor does not fully understand." "Regarding Lady Rennick's claim?" Eliza asked, her heart pounding. "Regarding a conspiracy that threatens not only your position but the emperor's life." The scribe withdrew a folded document from her sleeve. "This letter was intercepted 3 days ago, sent from the Duke of Western Kazakhstan to the ambassador of the Northlands." Eliza accepted the letter with trembling fingers, quickly scanning its contents. The blood drained from her face as she read the Duke's detailed plan to place his daughter on the throne as Empress, followed by the assassination of Emperor Ismail during the coronation festivities, paving the way for a Northland invasion under the pretext of supporting the new Empress's claim. "This cannot be true," Eliza whispered. "Lady Rennick is of imperial blood. Her family has served the throne for generations. The Duke's gambling debts to Northland merchants exceed the value of his entire province," Matilda explained. "He sold his loyalty along with his daughter's virtue." "Does the Emperor know?" "The Emperor knows of the letter but believes it to be a forgery created by his enemies to sow discord." Matilda's voice lowered further. "What he doesn't know is that I recognized the handwriting as authentically the Duke's. I taught him his letters when he was a boy at court." Eliza sank onto a nearby chair. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because the Emperor chose you, Lady Rothwell. Truly chose you, despite what transpired today." The old scribe's eyes softened. "I was present behind the silk screens as is my duty. I heard and saw everything. The Emperor never approached Lady Rennick. His hand sought yours from the moment the first words were spoken. Then why would he allow this chaos? Why not simply declare Lady Rennick's claim false?" "Politics, my lady. Always politics." Matilda sighed. "The western provinces have been restless. A public rejection of the Duke's daughter could spark rebellion. The Emperor needs time to manage this delicately." A second knock interrupted them. Matilda quickly retrieved the letter and concealed it. "Come," Eliza called. Grand Vizier Hassan entered, bowing formally. "Lady Rothwell, His Imperial Majesty requests your presence in the Silver Garden." "Alone?" The Silver Garden, named for the rare silver-leaf trees imported from distant lands centuries ago, sat at the heart of the Imperial Palace. It was said that secrets spoken here remained forever trapped within its walls, carried away only by the birds that nested in its exotic foliage. Emperor Ismail waited beside the central fountain, having dispensed with his formal regalia in favor of simpler attire. For a moment, he appeared to Eliza as merely a man rather than the living embodiment of imperial power. "Lady Rothwell," he acknowledged her approach with a slight nod. Eliza curtsied deeply. "Your Imperial Majesty. Please, walk with me." He gestured toward a winding path that disappeared among flowering shrubs. They walked in silence for several minutes, the only sounds the gentle splashing of fountains and the calls of unfamiliar birds. Finally, the Emperor spoke. "You must have many questions about this morning's events." "Only one that matters, Your Majesty," Eliza replied with unexpected boldness. "Did you choose me or Lady Rennick at midnight?" Ismail stopped walking, turning to face her directly. "I chose you, Lady Eliza." Without hesitation or doubt. Relief flooded through her, quickly followed by confusion. "Then why, politics?" he sighed, unconsciously echoing Scribe Holloway's explanation. "The midnight selection ceremony is meant to be a private affair, known only to those directly involved. But someone leaked information to the Duke of Western Kazhistan that his daughter had not been selected. He immediately set this plan in motion, having prepared for the possibility." "You knew this would happen?" "I suspected something might occur. The Duke has been increasingly desperate in recent months." Ismail resumed walking, his pace slower now. "What I did not anticipate was Lady Rennick's willingness to participate in her father's scheme. She seemed a woman of greater character." Eliza gathered her courage. "I have heard that the Duke faces significant debts to Northland merchants." The Emperor stopped again, his gaze sharpening. "Where did you hear this?" "Palace walls have ears, Your Majesty, and tongues often wag in the presence of those deemed unimportant." It wasn't entirely a lie, though Eliza felt a pang of guilt at concealing Matilda's involvement. A hint of a smile touched Ismail's lips. "You are more observant than most, Lady Eliza. It is one of the qualities that drew me to your voice last night." "My voice?" "But the selection is meant to be random, a matter of fate." Now the Emperor's smile broadened. "Another palace fiction, I'm afraid. While I was indeed blindfolded, I requested detailed information about each potential bride beforehand. Your educational achievements, your charitable work in the northern province, your poetry published anonymously in the Imperial Literary Journal, all spoke of a mind and heart suited to imperial responsibilities. Eliza felt her cheeks warm. You read my poetry. The northern stars guide wanderers home, their light a promise kept across the void, he quoted. Your words, I believe, from the reflections on winter's passing. You memorized it, she whispered, astonished. Poetry reveals the soul, Lady Eliza. I wanted an empress with a soul, not merely a suitable bloodline. His expression grew serious again. Which brings us to our current predicament. Lady Rennick's claim threatens not only your position but the stability of the empire. The western provinces would view her rejection as an insult, possibly enough to trigger the rebellion they've been contemplating for years. What will you do? Ismail gazed up at the silver leaves shimmering in the afternoon light. What emperors have always done, find a political solution that preserves the empire while sacrificing as little as possible. And what is to become of me in this political solution? Eliza asked, unable to keep a tremor from her voice. The emperor's eyes met hers, holding a warmth she hadn't seen before. That, Lady Eliza, depends greatly on your answer to my next question. 2 weeks passed, during which Eliza remained sequestered in her palace apartments, permitted to receive only her ladies-in-waiting and the occasional visit from Scribe Holloway, who brought books but no further news. The court hummed with speculation, but official announcements regarding the interrupted mourning ceremony were conspicuously absent. On the 15th day of her confinement, Eliza was startled by the arrival of her father, Sir James Rothwell, who burst into her chambers without ceremony, his face ashen. Father! She rushed to embrace him. What brings you to court? I had no word of your coming. No word. Sir James pulled back to examine her face. I received an imperial summons 3 days ago, ordering me to court immediately to discuss matters concerning the emperor's marriage selection. I feared the worst. Eliza guided him to a seat. I've been told nothing. The court is in limbo since Lady Rennick's claim. Sir James removed his travelling hat, running a hand through his greying hair. The entire empire speaks of nothing else. Some provinces have already declared their support for the Western Duke's daughter, while others maintain that the Emperor's original selection, you, must be honoured. The Empire is dividing over this. Eliza felt the weight of responsibility settle more heavily upon her shoulders. It was already divided, my dear. This has merely given the faction something concrete to rally around. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. There are whispers of Northland troops massing at the border. Before Eliza could respond, a palace attendant entered with a bow. Lady Rothwell, Sir James, your presence is required in the Emperor's private audience chamber immediately. They were led through a labyrinth of corridors unfamiliar to Eliza, eventually arriving at an unadorned wooden door guarded by elite imperial soldiers. Inside, they found not only Emperor Ismail and Grand Vizier Hassan but also the Duke of Western Kazhistan and his daughter, Evangeline. The Duke rose immediately upon their entrance, his face flushed with either anger or embarrassment. What is the meaning of this? You bring the provincial governor here as if he were our equal. Sir James Rothwell serves the Empire with distinction, Ismail replied coldly. A concept you might do well to reacquaint yourself with, Duke Rennick. The Duke sputtered but fell silent under the Emperor's stern gaze. I have summoned you all to announce my decision regarding the interrupted mourning ceremony, Ismail continued. After careful consideration and consultation with the 7 viziers, I have determined a course of action that will preserve the Empire's unity while honoring tradition. All eyes turned to him expectantly. Eliza noticed Evangeline's hand trembling slightly where it rested on her lap. Lady Eliza Rothwell was indeed my chosen bride at the midnight selection, the Emperor declared. This fact is attested to by all official witnesses present. The Duke surged to his feet. This is an outrage. My daughter, silence, Ismail commanded, his voice resonating with imperial authority. I have not finished. The Duke reluctantly resumed his seat. However, the emperor continued, the public discord created by these competing claims threatens the stability of our empire at a time when external enemies gather at our borders. Therefore, I have decided that neither Lady Rothwell nor Lady Renwick will become empress at this time. Gasps filled the small chamber. Eliza felt her heart sink, though she had half expected this outcome. Instead, Ismail said, I will embark on a tour of the provinces, beginning with the west and north, to strengthen imperial bonds with our people. Lady Renwick will return to her father's estates with full imperial honors and a personal gift of land in the southern provinces to establish her own household, independent of her father's influence. The Duke's face darkened, but Evangeline's expression showed something closer to relief. And Lady Rothwell? Sir James asked, his voice tight with concern for his daughter. Lady Eliza will accompany me on my provincial tour as my personal scribe and imperial liaison, Ismail replied. Her education and diplomatic skills will be invaluable in this undertaking. Eliza looked up in surprise, meeting the emperor's gaze. There was a message there, hidden behind the formal declaration, that only she could read. The morning ceremony will be rescheduled for after the completion of the imperial tour, Ismail concluded. By then, I trust, matters will be clearer to all concerned. As the audience ended and they filed from the chamber, Eliza felt a light touch on her arm. Grand Vizier Hassan leaned close, his voice barely audible. The emperor requests your presence in the Silver Garden at sunset. Come alone. Twilight painted the Silver Garden in hues of lavender and gold as Eliza made her way along its winding paths. She found Ismail seated on a stone bench beneath the largest of the silver-leaf trees, dressed again in simple attire, a book open in his hands. Your Imperial Majesty, she curtsied. Eliza, he replied, using her given name for the first time. Please, join me. As she sat beside him, he closed the book, and she recognized the cover, a collection of anonymous poetry published by the Imperial Literary Journal, containing several of her own works. You seem to favor my humble verses, she observed. They reveal a mind that thinks deeply about duty, beauty, and truth, qualities essential in an imperial companion. He placed the book aside. I trust you understood the true purpose of today's announcement. You created a temporary solution that appeases both factions while giving yourself time to neutralize the Duke's conspiracy with the Northlanders, Eliza replied. Ismail nodded, a smile of approval warming his features. Precisely. The Duke cannot move against me while his daughter receives imperial favors, and the land grant gives Lady Renwick independence from her father's schemes, a gift I suspect she will welcome more than she would have welcomed the imperial crown. She did not seem distressed by your decision, Eliza agreed. Few women truly desire to be empress when they understand the gilded cage it represents. His eyes studied her face. Which brings me to the question I asked you 2 weeks ago, the answer to which has guided my decision since. Eliza recalled their previous conversation in this same garden, and the unexpected question he had posed, if you could choose your own fate, free from imperial politics and family expectations, what would you choose? I stand by my answer, Your Majesty, she said softly. I would choose to serve the Empire in a capacity that allows me to use my mind and education for the greater good, while remaining true to myself. Not the answer most women would give when offered the imperial throne, Ismail noted. I am not most women, Eliza replied simply. No, you are not. He reached for her hand, a startlingly intimate gesture. Which is why I chose you at midnight, and why I choose you still, despite the political complications. As your scribe for the provincial tour, she asked, her pulse quickening at his touch. As my partner in ruling this complex empire. The tour provides us with something precious and rare for people in our positions, time. Time to know one another beyond the constraints of court protocol. Time for you to decide if the burden of the imperial crown is one you wish to bear. And if I decide it is not, then you will have my respect and gratitude, along with any position in the empire that suits your talents. His fingers tightened gently around hers. But I hope you might come to see that together, we could create something meaningful, not merely an imperial alliance, but a true partnership. Eliza looked down at their joined hands, then up at the silver leaves shimmering in the dying light. The provincial tour begins when? 3 days hence. We travel first to the western provinces to ensure the Duke understands his daughter's new position is contingent upon his continued loyalty. A dangerous first destination, she observed. Less dangerous with you at my side. Ismail's expression grew serious. Your understanding of provincial politics and your connection to the people through your charitable work will open doors that imperial authority alone cannot. A nightingale began to sing somewhere in the depths of the garden, its melody cutting through the growing darkness. I have one condition, Eliza said after a moment's consideration. Name it. No more imperial fictions between us. Complete honesty, even when the truth is difficult or politically inconvenient. Ismail studied her face in the fading light. You ask for something few emperors have ever granted, even to their empresses. I ask for what I need to serve both you and the empire effectively, she replied. After a long moment, he nodded. Truth between us, then. Beginning now. He reached into his robe and withdrew a folded document. This letter was discovered in Lady Rennick's possession. It details her father's arrangement with Northland mercenaries to assassinate me during what would have been our coronation festivities. Eliza accepted the letter, pretending to read it for the first time. Lady Rennick was part of this plot. No, Ismail said, surprising her. Upon questioning, it became clear she had discovered her father's plan and was attempting to flee the palace to seek help when she was captured. The guards misunderstood her intentions. She was trying to warn you. At considerable risk to herself. Her claim to be my chosen bride was a desperate attempt to gain an audience after her more direct approaches were blocked by her father's allies at court. Eliza felt a rush of sympathy for Evangeline. The land grant is not merely a political maneuver, then. It's protection for her. Protection and recognition of her loyalty to the empire above her family's ambitions. Ismail reclaimed the letter, tucking it away. The truth is complex and rarely fits neatly into the narratives we create to explain our world. Like the narrative that the midnight selection is guided by fate rather than the emperor's careful research, Eliza said with a small smile. Precisely. He stood, offering her his hand once more. Shall we continue this conversation tomorrow? There is much to plan before our departure. As they walked together through the darkening garden, Eliza felt something shifting within her, fear giving way to possibility, uncertainty to purpose. The emperor had chosen his bride at midnight, guided not by fate but by his own judgment of her character and abilities. Morning had revealed a different truth, not of deception but of deeper connection, one that might, given time and trust, grow into something neither of them had dared hope for in their duty-bound lives. 6 months later, as autumn painted the imperial capital in crimson and gold, Emperor Ismail and Lady Eliza returned from their provincial tour. They had traveled to every corner of the empire, from the snow-capped northern mountains to the sun-baked southern deserts, meeting with governors, merchants, and common folk alike. Their return coincided with the autumn festival, the traditional time for imperial weddings. The court buzzed with speculation, would the emperor finally announce his bride? The successful tour had quieted much of the factional discord, particularly after the Duke of Western Kazhistan had been quietly removed from power and replaced by his more moderate cousin following the discovery of his treasonous correspondence. On the eve of the festival, Eliza stood on the balcony of her chambers, gazing out at the city below. 6 months ago, she had been a frightened young woman thrust into imperial politics against her will. Now, she knew every province of the empire, had helped draft new trade agreements, had mediated disputes between feuding noble houses, and had earned the respect of courtiers and commoners alike. A knock at her door interrupted her reflections. Enter, she called, expecting her lady's maid with preparations for the evening's festivities. Instead, Ismail stepped into the room, closing the door quietly behind him. Your Majesty, she said with genuine pleasure, no longer needing to force formality into her tone. Over the course of their journey, they had developed a comfortable rapport, their conversation spanning topics from imperial policy to poetry, from childhood memories to hopes for the empire's future. Eliza, he acknowledged with the warm smile he reserved only for her. I hope I'm not intruding. Never, she assured him, gesturing for him to join her on the balcony. They stood side by side, watching the city prepare for tomorrow's celebrations. Lanterns were being hung along the main thoroughfares, and the scents of festival foods drifted up from the streets below. Tomorrow the court expects an announcement regarding the imperial marriage, Ismail said after a comfortable silence. And what will you tell them? Eliza asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Their relationship had deepened over the months of travel, evolving from cautious alliance to genuine partnership. The political reasons for their union remain valid, but they had been overshadowed by something neither had anticipated, a profound connection based on mutual respect and growing affection. Instead of answering directly, Ismail reached into his pocket and withdrew a small silk pouch. Do you recall the night of the midnight selection ceremony? Every detail, she replied. There is one detail you don't know. He opened the pouch and tipped its contents into his palm, a simple gold ring set with a single pearl. This is the imperial ring I was supposed to place on my chosen bride's finger that night. Tradition dictates that it should have been presented during our first meeting, but with the chaos that followed, it remained in safekeeping. He held the ring between them, the pearl catching the dying sunlight. 6 months ago, I asked what you would choose if free from imperial politics and family expectations. Today, I ask again, but with the knowledge of all that being empress would entail, all that we could accomplish together, and all that we have come to mean to each other. Eliza looked at the ring, then at the man offering it, no longer simply the emperor, but Ismail, with his love of poetry, his dedication to his people, his quiet strength, and the gentle humor he revealed only in private moments. I choose partnership, she said softly. I choose to stand beside you, to counsel and support you, to challenge you when necessary, and to build something lasting together. Ismail's smile deepened as he took her hand and slipped the ring onto her finger. Then I am honored to announce tomorrow that the midnight selection was correct all along. The emperor chose his bride in darkness, but the light of day has only confirmed the wisdom of that choice. As the first stars appeared in the twilight sky, Ismail leaned forward, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that sealed their agreement, not the political union originally envisioned, but something rarer and more precious, a marriage of equal minds and kindred spirits, bound together by choice rather than obligation. The empire would have its empress, and Eliza would have a purpose worthy of her abilities. But most importantly, they would have each other, a truth revealed not in the mysterious darkness of tradition, but in the clear light of understanding that had grown between them, day by day, word by word, heart to heart.